So if you watch my review on Sorry Wrong Ed, you know I think it's one of the worst episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy. But not the worst. That title belongs to If It Smells Like an Ed. This is the only episode of this show that literally kept me angry throughout the entire viewing. Something Sorry Wrong Ed never even managed to do. If I were to compare this episode to another infamous episode of a great TV show, I'd compare it to A Pal for Gary from SpongeBob. It's that bad.
Gary! You put Fluffy down right now. Bad boy Gary. Bad.
It starts with all the neighborhood kids celebrating Friends Day, and it gives you this false sense of security that's going to be a harmless and adorable episode.
Sister Sarah?
Yes, Brother Jimmy?
Gotcha!
You little rascal, you.
Then the ads come, and I guess in an attempt to make you feel good about all the things that are going to be coming later in this episode, Eddie ends up acting like a dick and gives Jimmy a wedgie, resulting in everyone laughing at him. After Sarah scares the Eds away, they notice a paintbrush is missing, and for some reason they blame Ed. No, really, I don't know what the reason is. They just blame Ed.
Hey guys, wasn't there a paintbrush here a second ago?
Huh? I bet Ed took it.
Have I ever mentioned you have impeccable timing, Eddie?
Here we go!
You stole my paintbrush, Ed! Give it back!
Paintbrush?
Well, after that random accusation, Johnny realizes his imaginary friend Plank's mouth has been erased, and a handkerchief with a blue smudge on it ends up in Double D's pocket. While this does give them a reason to assume it's Double D asks a very good question.
Oh, come on, people! Why would I want to erase Plank's mouth?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why would he want to do that? I mean, yeah, Double D was a jerk and Sorry Wrong Ed, but everyone in the cul-de-sac knows he's nothing more than a dorky pacifist. But I guess to avoid anyone answering this, because that would require the cul-de-sac kids to, I don't know, think, Jimmy ends up noticing that someone shoved a hockey stick through the kid's papier-mâché heart, and the hockey stick has Eddie's name on it. So yeah, it's clear at this point this whole episode's going to revolve around the Eds being framed. The Eds try to defend themselves, but everyone's already jumped to their own conclusion with very little, or in Ed's case, no evidence, that the Eds are guilty and must suffer. The Eds set out to clear their names in a very Sherlock Holmes way, and the episode really tries hard to make you think the culprit is Rolf, who's been acting shady since Eddie took one of his candies. They find a giant footprint that's obviously meant to be Rolf's, and then they find Johnny tied up and covered in candy that Rolf's been eating throughout the entire episode. But, of course, as in most innocents being framed storylines, the Eds try to free Johnny, only to have the neighborhood kids assume they're actually tying him up, and of course, not even questioning why he's covered in Rolf's favorite candy.
We have evidence that proves our innocence.
We've had enough of your lies!
They made me cry.
That's it! I'm giving you a lifetime worth of lumps!
The Eds end up being chased into an abandoned house, where they think they find Rolf, only to find out it's actually the Kanker sisters. In order to avoid being raped by the Kankers, the Eds give themselves up to the neighborhood kids, who tie them up and punish them by throwing fruit at them. Honestly, with how bad the neighborhood kids have been throughout this entire episode, I'm surprised they didn't pull out a bunch of fucking AKs and blow their heads away. But anyway, after the Eds' punishment, the culprit is revealed to actually be Jimmy, who says he did this to them because of the wedgie he received from Eddie.
I have never been so humiliated in all my life. Your mocking laughter, gouging at my fragile pride, just like my undies. It was at that moment I formulated my revenge.
Okay, so why the hell did you frame the other two Eds? Seriously, I mean, Eddie I understand to a degree, but the other two didn't do anything to Jimmy. So why did they deserve this? I mean, it's not like Eddie couldn't have been the only one punished. Hell, Rolf had no problems only attacking Eddie when Eddie hurt his feelings. See, I'll admit this. The false accusation storyline is a very hard one to do right. Very few people enjoy watching innocent people, especially characters they developed an attachment to, get accused and harassed for things they didn't do. So the payoff has to be worth it. One good example of a failed attempt at the storyline is the Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends episode, Everyone Knows It's Bendy, where all the main characters, who all the viewers at this point in the show have grown to love, are framed for things they didn't do by a character named Bendy. Two secondary characters refuse to listen even though they just met Bendy that day, and in the end, Bendy wins and gets no punishment. This episode was so poorly received that the writer herself considers it her biggest regret. So that's a sign of how badly botching up an episode like this can hurt you. So, with all that stated, how are they going to end this episode? Well, after the Eds get punished by the neighborhood kids, it's revealed that Jimmy made another deal with the Kinkers. This time with the Kinkers getting to drag the Eds away to do God knows what to them. The exact thing they were trying to avoid when they turned themselves into the neighborhood kids for stuff they didn't even do. So at this point, you hate Jimmy. You want him to suffer a crueler fate than the Eds. You don't want him to get away with this. So how do they punish him? What's their grand ending to this episode?
Don't mess with the best, suckers. Sarah, owie!
He slips on a banana peel? That's it? That's the best you could come up with? Jimmy suffered a worse fate than that by saying hi to squirrels.
Hello, Mr. Squirrel. You're cute. Sarah, owie!
Throughout the entire series, Jimmy's always been getting hurt. That's his character. This isn't punishing Jimmy. This is Jimmy being Jimmy. Why couldn't you have ended it with all the neighborhood kids overhearing Jimmy's confession? It's cliched, sure, but it's the only way to make an episode like this one work. When you fail to make things right in the end, all you end up doing is destroying your character. Whether it's a one-time character like Bendy, a supporting character like Jimmy, or even a main character like SpongeBob. In fact, this episode is a big reason why people have listed Jimmy as one of their all-time least favorite characters.
Don't mess with the best, suckers.
Look, I'll admit this. While the Eds are characters you would like to see succeed, you also don't mind it when they fail. But that's because most of the time they deserve it. In this episode, though, they don't deserve what they're getting at all. Eddie is debatable, sure, but Double D and Ed did not deserve this kind of torment for simply laughing at Jimmy. Hell, Naz laughed at him, even though in an episode that aired before this one, she berates everyone for laughing at Jimmy. And to the fans of Ed, Edd, and Eddy, we love the Eds. We know they're not the best role models. We know they can be jackasses sometimes. But we still love them. Because they always stick it out. They never give up. They keep us laughing and smiling, and they keep us just all around happy. They're who we keep coming back to watch. Not Jimmy, not Rolf, not any of the neighborhood kids. So seeing them being tortured, falsely accused, and suffering one of the worst fates they've ever suffered, all because they mildly humiliated a supporting character that no one really cares about, and who suffered a lot worse than what he's getting revenge on the Edge for, makes this episode nothing more than a slap in the face of the viewers who love this show. But, to be honest, like I said in my last review, every show that's been on as long as Ed, Edd, and Eddy is bound to have a dud or two. And the fact that there are only 2 episodes in this show that I genuinely hated, that says something about how good this show was. There were a huge number of great episodes, funny episodes, episodes that made you support the Eds despite them being a nuisance. And that's what I'll be talking about in my next review.